What's going on, comic fam? It is your boy, the bearded comic bro, and we are back, Bouff. Welcome back to the show. We are here for another episode 7 of Craft and Comics. Man, it's good to be back with you, man.
It is. It's been a long time. You and I, on paper, are literally another year older. We both have birthdays. It's been so long.
Yes, it is. And it has been a long time coming. It's been like 3 months. And I actually was on a show the other day and I was talking about this and people were like, you used to do a comics and beer show. I go, we still do. It's coming back and we're coming back in full force. So
excellent. We got some great beers. We got some great content today. But you are a presence on the internet. In the past 3 months since we've done an episode of Craft and Comics, you have thousands upon thousands of subscribers, millions upon millions of fans. People, keep it up. Like, sub, hit him up in the comments. Watch his videos. He's dropping multiple every week. Tune into the Bearded Comic Bro on YouTube and support him.
I appreciate that. Thousands might be a little extreme, but we can say maybe.
I can't math. I'm sorry.
We can say like maybe a couple hundred or something. But no, yeah. So it's been fun. And that's what, some of the stuff of just trying to build up some different programming on the channel, and summer and COVID, our schedules have been kind of, so it's good to kind of be back in the groove. And
absolutely. I was worried Mrs. Bearded was going to crack a beer and then I'd be out of a job.
Listen, if she liked more beer than just like a speck of sour beer, you'd be out, bro. She'd be like, no.
All right, I'll take that. I can handle it.
She's been hopping on. She's been a strong presence now on my show. We're actually we have some comics that we're gonna read. She's gonna read her first comic book here soon. We're gonna do a comic review. So I kind of slowly hooked her in, and man, she's in. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But no, Craft and Comics is always going to be with my Bouff.
Awesome.
So it's been a while. What do we do on Craft and Comics?
Well, the name does really tell people everything. We drink craft beer. We talk about craft beer. And we somehow rope that into comics. Not that we need a reason to talk comics, but we do a little thematic pitch, and it makes it fun for everybody.
That we do. So today on Craft and Comics, we are talking slow sippers. So we're talking those beers that you want to pace yourself a little bit. You want to enjoy. You want to savor it. You don't want to shotgun it, right? Like you want to.
You might not be able to. You might burn a little.
So we're talking what are going to be some of our slow sippers, and we're pairing that perfectly with what are some of those slow sipper comics, those comics that have taken some time from when they were supposed to come out to when they finished. And whether you want it to be a slow sipper or not, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, you've been waiting on that next issue, and all of a sudden you find out the creative team's involved in something else, or I don't know, the guy left the company or something, disaster upon disaster, that you don't get to finish that story. Fortunately, the books we're talking today, they were eventually finished, and one of them to a very high level, which we both loved.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about some other ones, but spoiler alert, if you look behind me, you can tell what we're going to be spending most of this episode talking about. So,
with good reason.
Yeah, with absolute good reason. So, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight, I pulled something from the cellar. I have a 2016 KBS from Founders. So this is their breakfast stout that has been aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels. Now, this is a pretty diesel beer. Anything that's barrel aged, you're likely going to get that burn on there. That's why I like to let it sit in the cellar for a few years, take some of that burn off, but you still get those bourbon whiskey notes on it. You get a little bit of the vanilla, you get a little bit of the oak, you get a heck of a lot of bourbon. And this is definitely something coming in at 11.5%. you absolutely want to do a slow sip. And this is one of those aromatic, like a Yankee Candle.
So good, man. You're speaking my language when you say bourbon barrel, and man,
This is like, there's like notes of coffee and chocolate and tobacco. Almost no head on this at all because it's been sitting in the basement, but it's still got the carb on it. Let's see. No burn on that at all. Big bourbon up front. I probably should have taken this out of the fridge a little while ago because it's still a little colder than I'd care for. It's probably going to get better as the show goes
it'll
on.
only get better. And that's
But
why
I'm
it's a
getting
good slow sipper, right?
absolutely, yeah. And the beers that change are the best slow sippers because you get a different beer throughout the evening. So right now I'm getting big bourbon, some dark chocolate, really dark roast coffee. I'm expecting the chocolate to get a little bit bigger as this warms up.
Hmm. Well, I'm jealous, so I'm gonna crack open
Well,
my
yes,
bad boy.
you should have something too. This is your program.
Now this is our program. This is our baby that we've created together. This is not mine. So I am bringing today. I've got a victory. It is a golden monkey.
Ah,
So,
classic. One of the first craft beers I ever had back in the day.
yep. So it's your pilsner. It's your it's your very earthy. You got those dry notes, but it's spiced with orange. You get that orange spice right at the end, and so it's a completely different style beer than yours. But this is coming in at, I think, 9.5. And my mindset is if it's higher than a 9, you better be sipping that because
Absolutely.
it's one of those that could be a dangerous one because it's a different style taste than your bourbon one, and it's easier to drink this a little quicker.
Definitely.
And but it's one of those that you need to be smart and slow sip it because it'll punch you in the face if you do it too quick. So again, though, it's a little bit on the head, not too much, and still as good as I remember it. So
Fantastic. I haven't had it in years. I remember it being on the sweet side. Is it still that way?
It is. It still is. It's very similar to like a Hogarden, that kind of what a Hefeweizen beer a little bit more.
Yep.
You get it doesn't promote it, but it's when you get those kind of like banana-y notes a little bit from that. So it kind of falls in that. So it's almost like a stronger tasting Hefeweizen a little bit is what it comes off as. I think that's the orange spices that's playing in there that's kind of triggering that a little bit too. So,
and that's why it's dangerous.
It is, because it is tasty as all get out. So we've got our beer. We've told you guys a little bit. So with that being said, let's talk comics.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus.
All right, so we're talking slow sippers beers. You got to pace yourself, but there's plenty of comics that take some time to enjoy. Most notably because there's been huge delays in the shipping schedule. Throughout time, I'm sure some people can just rattle off a few. One came to mind immediately, but a couple of quick fire examples, like the 90s Ghost Rider series. The final issue never came out. They just stopped publishing it. When did it release? 10 years after. George Perez started penciling JLA Avengers in 83. It was released in, I think, 2003, somewhere around there. Crazy delays like that, you don't see as many. One that came to mind, Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. Written by Damon Lindelof, art by the spectacular Len Liu. This issue hooks you in on the second page, because it opens up with a double splash of the Hulk ripping Wolverine in half. If that's not going to grab a comic fan's attention, I don't care if you're an X-Men guy or a DC guy, that's going to draw your attention because the man with unbreakable bones is getting ripped in half. So, okay, I pick up that first issue. It's awesome. Pick up the second issue. jumps around in time. We get a little backstory. How did Wolverine get to where he's going? And then I go to get issue 3, and the shop doesn't have it. Oh, it's been pushed back. Damon Lindelof, he's writing Lost. He's involved in the most popular TV show of the era. So obviously he can't balance comics and TV at the same time. A couple months turns into half a year. And then the series eventually just gets canceled because issue 3 never came out. So what happened was, because of his involvement with Lost, Damon Lindelof never finished the script. He just never finished writing the books. TV took the priority. So the book came out in December of 2005, 2 issues, on, I think, 1 to 3 months apart, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they actually just canceled it after the delays get pushed back farther and farther. We bump out to November of 2006. Boom, series is canceled. Like Marvel says, this is just not happening. The script isn't finished. We can't do this. Fast forward 2 years to San Diego Comic-Con 2008, where Joe Quesada, who I believe was the editor-in-chief at the time of Marvel, is joined by Damon on stage. And Lindelof hands him a script saying, here is the finished script of the remaining issues of Ultimate Wolverine Hulk. Yeah, the crowd goes nuts. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So they re-released issues 1 and 2 as like a special package issue. And then, even then, it didn't quite come out monthly. There was some spacing, but it finished up in the latter half of 2008 and then midway through 9, because you had 3 through 6 out. So they were spaced roughly 2 to 3 months apart. And you know what? The art is beautiful. Len Liu is amazing because he had to finish up Secret Invasion in order to get back on the art duties. It introduced Ultimate She-Hulk. Nick Fury was in it. The Hulk was like a barbarian pimp, but it wasn't that great. And even reading it again before this, it doesn't have a real hook. The art is spectacular. That first double splash with Wolverine getting ripped in half, it's still amazing. So good that in a Wolverine one-shot, and I believe it was the Old Man Logan one-shot in like a backup story, Logan's having a dream, and Ed McGuinness did a swipe of it just in his style of like the old-timey, Hulk 181 Hulk and the old original costume Wolverine. It's a pretty sweet swipe on that. But, if you can find it in the dollar bin, cool, or maybe it's for sale on my sale account soon. Grab it. It's fun. It's 90s, even though it's in 2000s. But it's nothing more than that, and just a huge example of poor planning in comics can lead to a disaster.
Well, that's what happens when you get these writers. Because I was probably part of the reason that your comic got delayed because I was watching Lost. But J.J. Abrams, he is writing the Spider-Man series.
Oh, that's right.
With his son Henry, and they did I think 3 issues, and then issue 4 got delayed for a couple months, and then COVID hit, and I think issue 4 just came out last week. So it's what happens when you get these writers who also are like, hey, we're going to dabble in comics. And
but I'm going to keep doing my other stuff too.
Right.
That's why it happens.
Yep. And so
not with everything. Like our next example, movies and TV, I don't think had anything to do with it.
I would say a little bit.
Because the writer had some involvement, some Hollywood happenings, yeah?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of writing for Johns with his involvement with the TV shows in the DC world, a little bit. So if you don't know what we're talking about, if you haven't picked up from here, we're going to be hopping in and talking about Doomsday Clock, a little Watchmen love here. So
sacrilege, some say.
I don't know, man.
I don't think so. I don't think Watchmen is an untouchable property that you can't branch off what was originally done. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much a masterpiece, but just because Alan Moore touched it doesn't mean that someone else can't work with it.
Right. And I think what this series does is a good job of that, right? Like it doesn't throw away the old And it doesn't throw away the old of the DC stories either. And I think
Definitely not.
it
It
does.
enriches them. It
It
expands
really
upon them.
does. And so before we hop in, I guess, too much about the storyline, this was another one of those. This is a long sipper. And I think it's a long sipper because of, I would say this is one that is a long sipper on a twofold, for me at least. It's a long sipper because it came out in what, 2000 or 2017
Yep.
November, and the last issue came out in what, 2020, January 2020, or
December of 19. So
okay,
it was 25 months apart, which
yeah. So
is, 12 issue series. That's still pretty significant,
yeah.
especially one that people are hanging on like this, that wraps up, I don't know, how many years worth of storylines, starting with the New 52 and Flashpoint.
So that's what, yeah. So that's why it's a slow sipper. And I know they were trying to coordinate this comic release with also the HBO series that was being done of the Watchmen.
That's right.
Which, if y'all haven't watched that on HBO,
I have not. I'm holding out my free trial for HBO Max for the Snyder Cut, and then I'll just binge everything.
yeah, binge away, because it's some of my favorite TV. And it's fantastic. So this is a slow sipper from that, right? Like, so it takes some time. Like, you were forced to read it 12 issues in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd also say it's a slow sipper because this is a very, and I don't want to say this in a way that sounds bad, but this is a very wordy series.
Oh, absolutely.
It's super heavy on the words. And I think for that aspect of, you have to take your time. You have to take your time and focus on, because each panel is covered with narration. It's covered with dialogue. And so you have to almost be a slow sipper from that standpoint too.
Absolutely. And in some of the pages, which I saw repeated throughout the series, you're looking at, maybe half of every book. Every page has 9 panels on it. And each of those has some sort of dialogue, some sort of narration, maybe both. And you're also looking at, different worlds and different timelines. So it was a challenge at times to keep track of, what am I reading, when am I reading it, and where does this go in the overall flow of the story. So I had to, kind of circle back and take another look. It didn't detract from it. It made me pay attention, because the writing was well done. The dialogue, the narration, the characters that we know from Watchmen were treated with respect. And
Right.
I thought they were a natural evolution. Ozymandias, he's the smartest man in his universe, and he's pretty damn smart in the DC universe too. Matching wits with Luthor, outwitting Dr. Manhattan again, one might say.
Yep. And that's what it is. Like, so for me, it was trying to find that sweet spot. So we were talking off camera. When I got into the series, I picked it up. I probably started picking up at issue 4 when I saw it up, and I went and got the other issues I needed. I read up, so I kind of smashed it right off the bat, and then I got caught up into the delays. And it's one of those that, like, you want it spaced out a little bit so you can just kind of, simmer it, let it simmer a little bit, just let it marinate in your system as you watch,
Mm-hmm.
soak in what you've read. But it also is one of those, because like you said, it's so heavy in DC and Watchmen lore of back stuff, that it's one of those that you have to have a good pacing though, because if you wait too long in, which it kind of started to get to with these, wait, what the heck happened in the first 8 issues or the issue I just read before this one? And so you have to kind of play that, because it doesn't slow down. Like, it's not a fast-paced book as
No.
much at all, but it is it's a very setup. I think you could be reading the series and go, okay, this would be one of those, if issue 12 doesn't hit with the impact that issue 12 does, because it, I think, is fantastic. I think people would be a lot more disappointed in this series than, because there's a lot of setup, but that set off pays off because of what they do in issue 12.
I agree, absolutely. But there are some moments that speed it along.
Yes.
Like, I could definitely, cite a few of my favorite things, like the marionette and the mime. two of the best new characters that I've read in DC Comics in many, many years. Like, they're fantastic. The Mime is just awesome because, as far as I paid attention, I have no idea where his powers come from unless everything is invisible. I still wasn't able to wrap my head around that.
Right. And
So that's awesome.
the marionette, like, you know, the scenes where they're fighting and she has her invisible wire, like, and like just slicing people up.
Yeah,
She does.
hands. Always the hands. Taking people's hands off, like leaving stumpy fingers or just no hands at all. Like, it's graphic.
Yeah.
And that's pretty, it's a pretty far step away from the comic code authority that we used to know. I mean, it's been many years since we didn't have to worry about that. But even by today's standards, it was approaching, gory violence that one might see in, an indie book.
Right. And I think I even think I remember reading it, is that it was like promoted as like a 15 plus, like, so it's promoting it almost like it's a PG-13 comic. And I'm like, there definitely it would be an R-rated.
Yeah. Well, because there's certainly, language in it, which you're not going to find in the typical comics. I liked it though, because, to hear the Joker drop an F-bomb, that's kind of appropriate. I'm like, oh, cool. He would talk like that. That's kind of awesome. It makes it a little more believable.
And then obviously you've got what Marionette and the Mimes characters do, and then obviously Old Faithful with Dr. Manhattan just strutting around like nobody's business.
Absolutely. With, one of my favorite moments, I told you, is my favorite Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, the man that's not embarrassed to wear a vest to work even today, just calls him out for being naked on Mars, because that's a very Guy Gardner thing to do. And that is why he is the greatest Green Lantern. Try to argue me on that.
I won't, because I know you're wrong. And the people watching this video know you're wrong, that Guy Gardner is not the greatest. I'm going to say the greatest is Kyle Rayner, and we're both going to still lose people because we probably have picked the two that people don't think are the greatest.
No, absolutely not. I don't remember seeing Kyle Rayner in this book, so there's a reason that Guy was included.
Yeah, I will say this. I don't like Guy Gardner at all, but his interaction with Dr. Manhattan there is one of my favorite interactions of his ever.
It was fantastic.
It was great. And so hats off to them. Hats off to the creative team of Doomsday Clock to actually let me like Guy for a little bit.
and so that's impressive. That's an impressive feat. And there's lots of other, fringe characters. Like, I read Firestorm back in the day. I love that 80s series. But I'm so far removed from it. I sold my books years ago. I remember seeing like the Elemental Firestorm, and I thought just Ronnie Raymond got, some sort of crazy, blown out like perm or something. But come to find out, like, this dude is the Russian Firestorm, Pozar, and he and Firestorm don't like each other. And our Firestorm is a government experiment manipulated by Professor Stein. Like, way to go, Jeff Johns. Like, just making Martin Stein an evil, government, drone.
Yeah.
But I thought it was kind of cool. Like,
it was
nice to know that stuff that's still familiar, you can retcon things like that and still, make it make sense and make it enjoyable. And, with Black Adam gathering all the heroes and the Superman theory that, all these heroes are engineered, that was very cleverly done. The amount of research that John's probably had to put into this for all those different interactions and origins and political views,
right.
And, all those concurrent timelines, like when Manhattan's looking at all the areas of Superman, like, hey, it's, June 23rd, 1938, and all of a sudden, Superman's picking up a 37 Chrysler over his head and smashing it into a rock. And then I see it again, and I see the rocket crash landing in Kansas in 1985, and this is the first time he comes to Earth. Like, it's really cool how that's done.
Yeah, I think that's their kind of way that they were using this series to kind of clear up the timeline, because DC is very convoluted.
Absolutely. There's a crisis every couple of years because they want to clean things up.
They do. And I think this is a really This is one of the better ways that I think they've done it, for me personally. And I'll tell you why I think this is a series that I'm not a huge Superman fan.
You mentioned that. I know. I mean, being a Batman guy, I think most people normally just kind of shy away from him, not dislike, but just oh yeah, not for me.
It's not for me, like, because they're completely two different style characters, and so
Right.
you get that. And I think the same people with. That's why I don't think it's so hard to make a Superman Batman work as well, because the readers like so much different things aspect of it. But for me to
Absolutely.
Superman is such a centric character in this storyline. And which is funny because he doesn't really come about until halfway through the series. But it hinges on Superman. And what's interesting from that aspect is to see how, in the midst of everything that's going on, I think this is one of the, and maybe someone who's a diehard Superman fan is gonna be like, no, this isn't right. They messed it up. And I think Superman works when you try to let Superman be Superman. He's a symbol of hope. He's a symbol of justice and peace for the world. And what they set up in this aspect of the story is, because we have Superman, because these different Earths, these different realities have their own version of a Superman, they have hope. And I think that's like the centric thing that, like, when they brought it all together in issue 12, it was great.
That's what, every time there was a divergent timeline, it's to preserve that Superman so he still exists to bring hope to that world and then the multiverse throughout. That's why every crisis, every 0 hour or flashpoint, it's another divergent reality where Superman exists, bringing that hope because it needs him to survive.
And I think that's an important aspect, right? Because the storyline of Doomsday Clock, Watchmen, is a very kind of, it's heavy with the, there's no hope in the world of the Watchmen, right? There's no hope for them. And so Adrian does this whole kind of like, hey, I'm going to make this plan and we'll kill these people they all can rally around something and then in the midst of it, it picks up where with the Rorschach Journal, where it kind of was like exposing that. And then some people basically just, in this issue of the first issue of Doomsday Clock, it basically reverts back to where they were at in Watchmen of, there's no hope in our world.
Yep.
And so if you've not read this series and you don't want to have spoilers, I'm going to hop into something a little more spoiler heavy for this section. So if you don't want to watch anymore, thanks for tuning in. But I think that's where they set it up very well with that, and they go into those aspects and with Superman of, and that's why it's so beautiful of the ending of Dr. Manhattan's like, we need a Superman in our world, and I think it hits beautifully.
Absolutely. And when that moment when Manhattan is like floored, like a man who can see all of time all at once just by looking around, like it's an hour in the future, it's 10 years in the past, like he sees it all the time, but he couldn't see what Superman was going to do. And Superman clocks Posar in the face. And, does he save Manhattan's life? Probably not, because you got to be pretty damn tough to take down Dr. Manhattan. But he's still surprised that Superman would do that.
Right.
Making him aware, hey, he's not going to punch me and kill me and end time, and I don't have to end time as well. Superman gives him that third option that you can use your everything to save the world.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful aspect of it, right? Like, because they do write that with Dr. Manhattan. They have those aspects in the pages where they're having a conversation. I think he's talking with the Justice League at one point, and he says something like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, I'm talking to so-and-so 15 minutes from now.
Yep.
Wait, what? So like it does a good job of drawing in those aspects of like what, of how Dr. Manhattan is in time and place, and, sketching all across the world. And like you said, hopping from panel to panel there. But that just shows you, I think that's where they really nailed it with Superman, right? When he goes to catch Firestorm, he's not there to like bring him in justice. He really wants to be like, this is someone I want to help. His first inkling is to help, and say what went on here, rather than just like, you killed thousands of people, I'm just gonna bring you in. Like,
Absolutely, yeah. He wanted to know, like, what's going on? What did you do? Like, all these people are made of glass now. What happened? And then, the people just started attacking Superman, and there are aspects of Superman's face that he kind of looks scared. He doesn't have to be, because pretty much nothing can hurt him, but he's scared because of what can happen to other people, it's just a nice job of displaying his humanity in this.
yeah. And I think it's great. So I mean, the writing was, for me, it really hit well. The art was fantastic in this.
Gary
So
Frank is awesome. Just anything, we were talking before the show. If you have not found Gary Frank and Jeff Johns team ups before, Action Comics, look for the Legion arc, the Brainiac arc, Secret Origin of Superman. They're all fantastic. And, you really want to go far back, because Gary Frank's style has changed over the years. He was on Hulk in the 90s, completely different style of art. He was even doing Marvel UK back in the day, back in like the Death's Head 2 and Battle Tide era, like drawing crazy 90s properties that only weirdos like me still hunt down out of the dollar bin. So if you're a Gary Frank fan, absolutely go after this series and all those other Johns Frank team ups.
yeah. So that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Wow. That was a heck of a show.
Like,
It's good to be back. Whew.
it is. It's good to be back. So if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're catching it on the podcast on Apple Music or Spotify or any of things like that, make sure you guys leave some comments. Let us know. We're planning on coming back and doing these more regularly. So what are some comic-related themes you want us to be talking about? What are you have some craft beer recommendations? Can you guys come up with some craft comics ideas that you're like, ooh, this would be a good pairing?
Viewer's choice. Hey, I like that.
But yeah, leave comments on the YouTube video. Let us know, because we read those comments, we interact. It's, you guys have, when we were doing this on the regular, you guys were commenting, and we were like, yeah, check that out. So, and we were checking out some of your recommendations. So, thank you guys.
On the old one, I think the Crushable Comics, someone recommended Headlopper. I've read like 3 volumes of that since. It's excellent, and appreciate whoever made that recommendation.
So, with that being said, Bouff, where can people find you and what you got going on?
People can find me on the Instagram. I am Bouff. I am Bouff. I'm on there. I need to get more into posting regularly, but my last several posts, you will see craft and comics, because I'm usually cracking one on Friday, throwing up a theme book alongside of it. And if you're looking to add some books to your collection, check out my sale page. So Many Comics, _many_comics, COMIX. I got to get rid of some books, and I want to put them in your hands at a very reasonable price. Selling complete series, trades, not too much, modern keys, but, as a lifelong collector, I got to move some stuff and, put it in.
And as someone who is like, I feel like those infomercial, like, not only am I the founder of Hair Club for Men, but I also am, not only do I host a show with you, I buy comics from you from that page all the time.
You are a customer as well. Yeah. So if anyone needs a verification as to how I conduct myself in the business world, Bearded can at least tell you that I'm tolerable.
Yes. And I mean, packaged well, and there are some cool things. Like, I picked up that Suicide Squad with Batman when Amanda Waller was just like chucking Batman up against the wall. Like, such an iconic issue for me, that cover, because it's like, that's a tough lady when she's like just chucking Batman against the wall,
with a pointed finger, like, see here, Batman.
So yeah, all the links that we talk about will be in the description of this video or on the podcast. Check them out. Check out the books, because you'll be scrolling through so many comics and go, oh, I forgot about this. And there's some bangers in there that are like, they're gems. Like you said, you're not going to be finding like a first appearance of Carnage, but you're going to find some books in there that you go, ooh, I forgot about that. I haven't checked that out, and it's good stuff. So for me, you can follow me everywhere, Bearded Comic Bro, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Bearded
That's
Comic
nice.
Bro.
A universal handle. You are the same man everywhere.
BeardedComicBro.com. So you can find me everywhere. It's Bearded Comic Bro. You can find me. And YouTube dropping videos, couple 2-3 a week, and Instagram daily content, and same with Twitter. Just having fun, talking comics, talking craft beers with my boy Bouff. So it's so good to be back. With that being said, gang, hopefully you can find some time this weekend, curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.